Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and welcome to Omni at the Movies, where our subject today is the 2025 version of Superman, also called James Gunn's Superman, also called, Superman Reborn before they dropped that other part? Whatever the case, it's the new Superman movie and the theatrical beginning to the new DC Universe movies. The actual beginning being Creature Commandos, unless you retroactively count Peacemaker, but this is where it's beginning in the movies. Now, I'm going to do my best to review the movie without comparing it to other Superman movies, because I'm not here to encourage either the Snyder cultists or the anti Snyder cultists. I'm just here to talk about the movie itself. Although I will say it does feel like certain elements were maybe done in response to the Snyder movies, like the particular emphasis that is placed on showing Superman saving lives in this movie. He saves a lot of lives, and that is a very important part of the character. But like I said, gonna try to focus on the movie on its own merits. Now, for starters, I enjoyed this more than I enjoyed Jurassic World Rebirth. Jurassic World Rebirth was just kind of there. Superman, I had more fun with. Although, I think my current thought is that I liked the movie, but I didn't love it. And I suppose I can explain exactly why. Now, there's been a lot of talk about like if James Gunn was the right person to do a Superman movie. I think he got certain elements of the characters right. You know, the Superman side of it that has all the particular Superman characters, Superman himself, Lois Lane, Perry White, Jimmy Olsen, Lex Luthor, and so on. That is not bad. In particular, I think the strongest part of it is the Lex Luthor side. Because, man, this is a very memorable Lex Luthor. Perhaps one of the better portrayals of the character, right up there with the DCAU version. However, I couldn't help but sense that James Gunn might have felt more comfortable as both writer and director focusing on the non Superman characters. Characters like the Justice Gang, Metamorpho, those aspects of the movie, where he's bringing in more obscure elements from the DC universe and putting them in the forefront. I don't want to give the impression that those characters detract in any way. They're integrated very naturally. If you were worried that the movie was going to be over bloated and have too many things going on at once, don't worry. We know from the Guardians movies and the Suicide Squad and everything that James Gunn is very good at balancing a lot of different characters. Good large ensemble cast, that's one of his specialties. This movie is no exception. But again, it does feel like he was more interested in those characters, which is not to say again that he doesn't do the Superman side justice. It's just that the actual Superman portion of this Superman movie is okay, but there's a stronger sense when it's focused on Guy Gardner and Mr. Terrific and Hawkgirl. So make of that what you will. I'm sure that's part of the plan to expand the movies going forward. But overall, that's not to say again that the movie was bad. We've got some pretty good action in here as well. And good performance, good chemistry between all the characters. Something else I should probably say, though. You may have heard that the movie is supposedly a very political one because everybody wants this movie to be on their side in the culture war. Now, I've seen the actual clip of James Gunn provide where all those quotes you might have heard have come from. Those quotes are taken way, way out of context. This movie is not especially political. Are there some political elements? Sure, but at its core, it's not about a political movie. It's not interested in being an immigrant story about facing down a billionaire or any of those other things you might have heard. at its core, what it really wants to be about is about kindness in a way. And that actually ties into an interesting conversation between Clark and Lois about midway through the movie. This isn't a spoiler. I mean, it's not in any of the trailers or anything, but it's not really revealing anything from the plot. But it does tie into the music. Now, James Gunn movies are known to have a lot of songs in the soundtrack, songs that somehow directly tie into what's happening on screen in some way. This movie doesn't do that as much, but the underscore, the actual soundtrack for it, while there are symphonic elements, there's a particular emphasis on rock music. And it ties into this conversation that Lois and Clark have at one point about what it means to be punk rock and what counts as punk rock. And at first, it seems like it's kind of getting off track a little bit, as dialogue written by James Gunn can sometimes do. But when it circles back around to the point, Lois says that she's a reporter, so she questions everything. But Clark just looks at everyone and believes that there is good in them no matter what. To which Clark responds, maybe that's what it really is to be punk rock. Paraphrasing. And you can kind of see where that's coming from. Because, you know, most people, if you ask them what punk rock is, like what defines punk, they would say, well, punk music is angry. Not really. That's not the true definition of punk. Punk is angry, and it started off very angry, but that anger was born out of rebellion. The idea of being punk is to rebel against what is considered mainstream. So the culture at the time was saying everything is fine, nothing is wrong, everybody's happy. The music was also saying, hey, isn't this a nice tune that you can dance to and it's all fun and it sounds nice? Punk was like, no, we don't think everything is fine. We're angry and we're not going to be pleasant when we tell you we're angry. So that was a rebellion against the mainstream. But what do you do? How do you be rebellious when everyone is angry? How do you be a rebel when nobody trusts anybody, everyone is yelling at everyone else, and everyone else is yelling back? Well, the most rebellious thing you can do in that situation is to be kind and to be nice and to try and inspire hope. It's an interesting way to convey it by not only having that conversation, but also giving the heroes rock infused themes. Now, does it land 100%? I don't necessarily know. I at least was able to pick up on it. So, interesting. Like I said, though, I didn't really feel anything about the movie that truly wowed me. I liked it well enough. It was a good movie. I don't regret going to see it. Like I said, enjoyed it more than Jurassic World Rebirth. But there was never a moment where I really thought that I was drawn in or blown out of my seat and thinking, wow, now this is a Superman movie. Now, why didn't I feel that way? Honestly, having only seen it once, I'm not 100% sure I can specify it, at least not without getting into major spoilers. Um, there were some choices made that were, well, I can see them being kind of controversial, though, again, I can't talk about that without discussing spoilers. Um, some of those choices, I'm not sure how I really feel about them. And, otherwise I can't think of anything the movie does that's especially bad. I mean, there are a couple of shots where things look a little bit weird. Like, I'm sure you've seen screenshots they're where the use of the lens to film certain shots causes certain things to be warped at the edge of the screen. Those are like minor things, really. Otherwise, the movie is very good on a technical level, especially with how much is practical as opposed to digital. Metamorpho is prosthetics. The robots in the Fortress of Solitude are practical puppets, things like that. And the performances, like I said, they're all very good. We get some strong characterization. Everybody's taking this seriously, bringing their A games. I don't know, just maybe it's because it's a Superman movie, and Superman has had movies that were next level a lot of the time. So for this one to just come out as good is kind of surprising. But I don't want to give the impression that because I'm saying it's good, that means it's bad. That's a ridiculous notion on the face of it. If I think the movie is good, I mean the movie is good. I don't mean it's good, but good isn't good enough, so I don't like it. I do like the movie. I just don't love it. Like I said, it's okay. Which I guess means if the movie does well and they do start greenlighting more movies, there's always room to improve. I don't know. But hopefully if this cast gets another shot, they can really up the ante a little. And maybe this is one that James Gunn for the future needs to hand off to someone else. Again, I like James Gunn stuff, but like I said, he seemed more interested in the side characters, not so much in the Superman part of it. So maybe in the future he should let somebody else handle Superman 2, whatever that winds up being, and he can focus on bringing those other more obscure DC characters in. He can do Sergeant Rock and more adventures of Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, and Hawkgirl. Maybe bring in Zatanna, The Question, other kinds of characters like that. But for now, like I said, though, it is good. I even recommend seeing it. But maybe temper your expectations just a little bit. And don't get sucked into any of the controversy surrounding it. That controversy is completely pointless. Now, perhaps I do want to discuss spoilers a little bit, but since I recommended the movie, I don't want you to hear any of them if you haven't seen it yet. So I'm going to throw a little ad break in here, give you plenty of time to click away and avoid spoilers. And after the break, I'll get into those controversial choices. All right, we're back, and this is the spoiler section. So, this is your last chance to look away from the screen before I say something that will completely destroy all of the surprises. Okay, is everyone ready? Now, one thing I noticed as well, I didn't really notice it actively while I was watching the movie, but as I was driving away and I was really thinking about it and getting set up to film this and everything, I realized Superman doesn't actually do all that much in the movie, at least in terms of resolving the conflicts. He saves a lot of people, like I said, and he does have a couple of victories that he can call his own, but most of the active conflict resolution goes to the Justice Gang, surprisingly enough, which I found a little surprising. The movie's called Superman, after all. You would think he'd be the one at the center of everything and the one who's primarily resolving stuff. But That's not so much the case. And again, I found that a little bit surprising. Maybe there's a reason for that, but it's just something I noticed that I thought was a little bit weird. But the really controversial thing involves a twist with Krypton itself. Now, this is the big spoiler. We establish in the first scene that when Jor-El sent Kal-El to Earth, he recorded a message for him, but that message was damaged somehow in the process, so only part of it plays. Superman can hear the first part of it, and he's always kind of assumed what the rest is supposed to be. And that's part of what motivates him. He believes he was sent here to be a hero and to serve humanity, help them, protect them, guide them towards a brighter future. When Luthor, the Engineer, and Ultraman invade the Fortress of Solitude, Engineer finds the message and, with her nanite fuel technology powers, is able to uncorrupt the rest of the message. And when translated, Luthor sends the results out to all the mass media as part of his campaign to ruin Superman's good image. And the translation states that Superman was actually sent to Earth to be a conqueror. His parents were hoping that he would basically overtake the world, spread Kryptonian genetics among humanity and stuff, which is the exact opposite of what Superman believed. And I was waiting for a moment where they would reveal that this was somehow a hoax on Luthor's part. Even though Mr. Terrific said, I know the guys who translated it, they're good, they know what they're talking about, this has to be genuine. And even when Luthor says in a private conversation with one of his conspirators, it wasn't fake, I was still waiting for something that would reveal it actually was. But that never comes. The closest thing we get is how, after Luthor's conspiracy is revealed, everything he said is basically viewed as discredited, and the message is probably among that. People probably just assume he did fake it somehow. But that's never actually confirmed. We are meant to believe that really is the case. And this is done for a reason. I want to be clear. It's because we're meant to view Superman not as an alien sent from above, but as a human from America's heartland. His real parents, the real motivation for him being a good person and a hero, is the fact that he was raised by Ma and Pa Kent, and who were good, salt of the earth people who instilled those values within him. But I kind of feel like that's missing the bigger picture. Yes, a large part of what makes Superman who he is the fact that he was raised in America's heartland as a human being. But the fact that he was sent from the stars is also important, because the House of El was the last good house on Krypton, no matter which variation of the story you read. So to take that aspect and say, no, it was actually not what you thought, they actually were no better than any other Kryptonian, that felt a little weird. I'm not going to lie. I get what they were going for. Again, they wanted to emphasize the man part of Superman. They wanted to emphasize that he's not an alien. He physically, yes, he is, but in every other sense of the word, he is a human. But to do that at the expense of his birth parents is an odd choice. I don't know if this is Gunn somehow playing a long game where he's gonna explore that further in the sequels, if the movie does get sequels. But I don't know. Just on its own, it's a weird choice to make, and one I don't know if I really like. But that's all I can really say in that regard. That's all I have to say in terms of spoilers at this point. So, you know, I'll just leave the rest to you guys. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.